Have you ever wondered where the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place? Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your host, Brian Berneman, who believes that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world. We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers. From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world. Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure to be joined just over the water here in Waiheke Island by Catia Batalha. Thank you so much, Catia, for being here, for connecting once more with me. And for everyone that is watching and listening to us, I would love it if you can share a bit about your journey so far in this lifetime.
Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My journey in this lifetime, it's certainly been a journey. I guess my deepest memories from very early on in my life were about feeling something that I call the emptiness. So the emptiness is a state of kind of meaninglessness, aloneness, like feeling like you don't belong, like everything kind of is a bit like superficial or doesn't quite match you or meet you. Is something, just something that doesn't feel fully alive, kind of a bit like deep depression. And it was, I lived in an environment that was also not really like an environment that I can say like, oh, it was a very free environment. Everyone was really respected and loved and so much connection. No, it was kind of it was a struggle. It was a struggle, and I was angry. I was alone. And so that's kind of the background. And I thought I put all my hopes and dreams into, but that's okay because one day I will somehow get out of this, and I will create a new life for myself. I will create my own family. I will raise that family, and that's how I will be finally happy and find meaning and find purpose and that sort of thing. However, that was not what was in the cards for me. And I actually tried, like I set that life up for about 10 years. Like I got the perfect house and the perfect neighborhood that had the perfect schools and all the rest. And when the time came, I had a perfect partner in a way as well. But when the time came, I actually did get pregnant, and I lost that pregnancy. So that was a huge turning point in my life where I realized it felt like I lost everything. Like I lost everything that was dear to me, everything that I put my hopes and dreams on. Everything felt like it crumbled. There's just no hope. That's how it felt. And in that moment, I guess there's something about destruction, that when everything is destroyed, there's actually room for something new to emerge. And something did emerge from that chaos and darkness. And I guess that's what darkness is, right? Like all seeds grow from the dark. Mm-hmm. And so from the dark, I found yoga. Not the yoga postures necessarily, but it was a random tantra school, actually, that a friend recommended to me. And she said she'd heard it's been changing lives, etc. I'm like, okay, like let's just go. And when I got there, I felt something that I can't explain, something beyond time, something like I had maybe heard about those things from a different life, or maybe I just knew them intuitively at a level that I somehow couldn't really explain. But something about that, and they weren't even doing yoga postures. It was more around yoga philosophy and psychology and how to live life and kind of the mysteries of the universe kind of thing. And in that moment, something awoke in me, something deep that recognized the deeper truth about who I am, what a human being is, what life can be about, And since then, that was in my kind of late 20s. And since then, life has changed in ways that I never thought were possible. When I was in the emptiness, I thought there's just nothing more to life. Like at best, I'll have some children. And now the horizons that have opened up, like then I became a yoga teacher, eventually after actually learning yoga, then I went through the whole yoga process for many years. And then I went more into a more shamanic kind of type teachings. And so, yeah, I feel like I've got now a mix of like the upper realms of yoga and the kind of connection to the earth and spirit, that sort of thing that comes from more shamanic and indigenous backgrounds. So everything has been a journey that has unfolded from that darkness and from that despair. And so kind of in a nutshell, that's sort of been the journey, kind of high level.
Thank you, Katia, for sharing that. Like a lot of times, and I think that this is important for so many people to hear our stories and to hear just how, like I know so many people that, like they just see what they see now. They perhaps don't know everything. And perhaps there's someone, that is in that space, as you're saying, of that challenging life, that darkness, or as you said it, and that emptiness, that depression, someone that perhaps lost a baby, that, like I have worked with many, many women through the years that they have lost babies, and that is a huge thing. And, sometimes just hearing that someone went through something like this and now you were able to transmute that to create a different life can be what they need just to be able to say, okay, like this is possible. Like I can move through this and with this towards something different. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, pleasure. No, I probably wish that somebody had given me some hope when I was going through that. When I was going through that, it's this state that you can't be comforted by anything. Like it's just pure grief and sadness. And this is the challenge with depression. And I'm a psychotherapist, so I see a lot of people who have depression, and it's very hard to get out of depression because you're under a lot of hormones that influence you to stay in that state, so the very things that would get you out of that state, you don't really have the motivation to do them because you are under the influence of those hormones. So in a way you have to push a little bit to even just take that step to get out, but sometimes you just don't even want to get out because the suffering is so high, right?
Yeah.
And often, yeah.
No, I think that, like, and I wanted to ask you about this, it's like both from your experience working with people and for yourself, like how beneficial or how important has it been the role of having someone there with you, like you as a therapist for someone that is going through depression, like I know for a lot of my clients, just having someone that is validating in a sense your experience and is acknowledging it and is just there with you, not so that you change, but that you can actually be with that.
Yeah, super important just to be held where you are, and in your tragedy, wherever that might have been, or your struggles or your lostness. I didn't have that luxury, sadly, so I can't really speak from a personal experience that much, and it was very hard to get out of it. But I think if I just had someone there to see me and hold me, that would have made a difference. Mm.
And I wanted to ask you, like you just shared that you found yoga, but and you said not so much the asanas or the postures. That is what most people know about yoga. Like I talk a lot of times with people, and I mention stuff like yoga, and everyone just thinks of postures.
Mm.
What was it about that philosophy that grabbed your attention, and what was it that in a sense like moved you to continue on that path?
Actually, that is a great question, because I think that question is actually at the core of how I managed to move forward, which is the yoga philosophy piece. Like, the universe is not as random as it seems. So, according to yoga, and I deeply believe this, like we have a soul, and this soul, it wants to awaken. It wants to be alive. It wants us to come to our full potential. And so it attracts into our lives the circumstances, the exact circumstances that we need in order to move in that direction of awakening our potential. Those circumstances are not always pleasant. They're often dramatic and traumatic. But they are somehow, in some mysterious way, the circumstances that we actually need in order to awaken those parts of ourselves. Now, before all this, I didn't have as much empathy as I have today, for example, for people in pain. I didn't have this deep desire for freedom if I hadn't been oppressed. I wouldn't have had this deep capacity that I have today for connection if I hadn't felt so disconnected. And I wouldn't have this emotional depth if I hadn't had the superficiality. So it's exactly, and I could mention like all these parts of my life, but that's not really relevant. But it's through those difficult things that happened that I managed to awaken the parts that I've awakened, and feel as peaceful and joyful as I feel today. So our soul is conspiring in a way for us to fully awaken. And I can see that now that I'm out of the mud, of course, and it was hard to see it then. So these things, I see them, and this is kind of how I describe them in my book. I've got a book that kind of describes kind of my life story in a way. Or it's fiction, so it's not fully, but this is how I describe it. Every circumstance that happens is a piece of a puzzle. But at the time, we don't see the puzzle. We don't even know that there is a puzzle. So it just feels like we're in pieces. We're broken. Things are happening for no reason. The universe is a terrible place, But actually, when we put enough of those pieces together, we start to see what is the soul journey. So even with my clients, I try to see, okay, what were the difficult moments in your past, the challenges, the traumas, and that gives me usually a pretty good idea of what their soul work is, like where they are meant to be awakening. So this is an example of yoga philosophy, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. So
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's something really interesting, and something that through the years I talked with so many people. For me, it doesn't matter what is the tradition. What matters is how we connect with that. Because, like for me, one of the main things when I was younger that I resonated with was Tibetan Buddhism. And not because it's Tibetan Buddhism, because it was what resonated with me. Like I was able, just as you're saying, I was able to see, experience, and life from a very different lens, and suddenly I was able to reconnect with my being, with my body, with my feelings, with my energy, something that I had no idea before. And I think that like that framework, that philosophy really supported me at that moment. And then I learned, oh, there's a lot of other different traditions that say very similar things, but we all perhaps need a slightly different wording or a slightly different way of resonating with something. And that is why a lot of times, especially when I work with businesses, I try to not talk too much about where something is coming from, just because not everyone is so open to it. Like if I say to someone, go to a yoga, a philosophy class, or go to a Buddhist class, perhaps they're like, this is too foreign, But if I tell them, this is about life and how you can navigate life and how, like, as you're saying, how you can put all of these pieces of the puzzle to make sense and actually see that there is a puzzle, then everybody will be good with that. So like I find it really interesting how as well, and this is why it fascinates me, a lot of the ancient wisdom, because it's timeless, it's relevant today. And they, like, this is something that once I was talking with one of my teachers, and he's like, well, Buddha wasn't Buddhist, he was just talking about like life and about like ways of experiencing experience and reality. And then after, like, all of his teachings, then suddenly, okay, that's Buddhism, but he wasn't Buddhist. Just like, like Jesus wasn't Christian, like there's so many interesting things with that I think that when we are able to sometimes distill the wisdom into a language that actually we can hear nowadays with some people that perhaps are not as, like open to those things, then that's a beautiful thing to be able to share.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I think that is the key part, is the what you can connect to and the underlying wisdom. Yoga is just a framework, Buddhism, and I studied a lot of those esoteric traditions and like Gnosticism and some Sufism and and what I found is the truths that are underneath them all are kind of the same. And that is what is at the core of how to lead a peaceful, fulfilling life. And so, yeah, what people can connect to. For you, it was Tibetan Buddhism, could be something else, could even just be a book that you found that inspires you, or a podcast that gave you a nugget of wisdom. It doesn't matter. And this is what I say to people with depression: do what feels accessible. Yeah, maybe it doesn't feel accessible to go out and do a 10-day Vipassana silent retreat, right? But maybe it feels accessible to go and read an article about wellness. Whatever it is, that little thing that sparks a flame inside, that is intuition, which is our greatest tool, in my opinion, and on the path, whatever that path may be. Following that intuition, because it's always guiding us, always telling us where to go to awaken a little bit more.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And I'd love for you to share, Katia, a little bit. You mentioned earlier the shamanic practices. Um, how did you get introduced to that? And if you can share a little bit more for those perhaps that are not that familiar with shamanic practices.
Hmm. Wow, it's such a huge world. Maybe I'll just give one example of how to bring that into daily life. So I work a lot with intuition. Like I believe that intuition is kind of our greatest guide, and whether that is to decide, what field we should work in, or whether to decide what to have for lunch. It's always communicating with us and trying to bring us to a life that's more aligned. And so intuition is key. And so when I talk about this with people and we go through the layers of that, they tell me, for example, oh, what about food? Like if I just follow my intuition, all I want is chocolate, or, that sort of thing. And here's where I found that the more indigenous or shamanic practices, yoga also has like tools for everything, but I found it very useful, the shamanic practices. For example, for me, if you have a really good reset, like a cleanse of your body, then it'll be much more true to you because it won't have like all the cravings that are telling you, yes, what you really need right now is a lot of lollies, you know? If you do, for example, temazcal or sweat lodge, as we call it in English. So if you haven't heard of sweat lodge, it's a sweat lodge is kind of a dome that we built, and it's completely dark inside. And we go inside, and these big rocks, sometimes called the grandmother or grandfather rocks, that have been heated in a huge bonfire outside, are put in the middle, and it's like a sauna, basically. We are there, it's completely dark, and what we feel is the heat, the element of the fire. And it's like a spiritual experience, really. It's a physical purification, but also you get confronted with all the fears, you know, like, oh my God, it's so hot, am I going to die? You know, and what does it mean if I die? You know, like all the really big questions start to come when you're faced with death in a way, or with something really like feels threatening. Obviously, it's not threatening, it's kind of just heat, but the heat is a powerful medicine, and it's very hot inside a temazcal. So if you go through that, for me, it's an emotional cleanse. It's almost like a rebirth. So the temazcal represents the womb, you know, the womb of the mother, the womb of the earth. And as you get out of there, you're more purified. Your body's been purified because you've sweat for 3 hours. And you actually feel different. So it's kind of it's an embodied experience of spirituality, a grounded experience. And so after that, because the body's purer, it's less likely to ask you for things that are unhealthy, because a body that's healthy normally just wants more healthy things. Another example is kambo, for example, which is a frog medicine. When you have it, they put a few drops of a secretion that a specific frog has in your body, and it's a huge purge. Like your body responds almost as if it's being poisoned in a way. And so your heart starts racing, you start sweating. Often you want to go to the bathroom straight away. And often you might throw up. So the body is essentially thinking, oh my God, I am going to die. So I better purify everything if I stand a chance. You know, so it's this huge cleanse. And again, after that, it feels like a new beginning at life, and it feels like your body's pure. So from that moment onwards, you can trust the intuition a lot more about what to eat. You know, so it's like these ways or just go into nature. You know, nature is such a powerful ally. And we think that, I think as a Western society, we kind of feel like we're alone in it. Okay, I am depressed and I'm totally alone in it. I have to either get out of it or not, but that's all up to me. But actually, nature is such a powerful ally, you know. Just even having the sun on us, or having crystals in the room, you know, to raise the vibration, some incenses, you know, just things that can help raise the vibration. Music, like healing music, going to a sound journey, for example, or just listening to Tibetan, or having a Tibetan bowl at home, you know. So yeah, these very specific tools that are our little allies on the journey. I'm sure you would have had probably some experiences with that too, I imagine, Brian.
Yeah, you know, and I think that especially as you're saying with nature, I think that there's, I had this growing up in Buenos Aires, mostly like I was like a, you know, like city person. I wasn't that connected to nature. And when I started to connect to nature, it really changed a lot of things because, as well, one of the things that I realized is that it's so simple. It's like it's just there. Like I'm seeing now into my garden. It's like I can just go and put my feet on the ground, and that just by itself will have a huge impact if I'm able to connect with the plants and the trees and like the flowers and just getting that connection, there is that realization of the interconnectedness. And I think that this is one of the things that for me a lot of the ancient wisdom teachings have that understanding of interconnectedness, that our society, especially the Western society, is very much focused on individualism, and it separates so much. And when we understand, like we are interconnected. Like I mean, like I do a lot of work on ancestral healing, so it's like we are even connected with those things that are invisible, not only to the things that we can actually see and touch. It's like we are so connected to so many different things, and when we're able to understand the accessibility, as you were saying before, with some of your clients, what's accessible? Well, like going to the park, going to the beach, getting to the water, going just like putting your feet on the ground, that is accessible. That is all of the time there, but most people don't do that. Like I see so much with a lot of my clients, like we are wearing shoes all of the time, we are not putting our feet on the ground, and then of course that makes it so that we are in that disconnected state. But it is, I tell a lot of times to people, there is something, especially on the health and well-being space, or if we want to call it an industry, there is so much that it's expensive, and at the same time so many of the medicines that we can get are free. Like a lot of times I even like, even though my business and marketing like people always tell me to keep the clients and to keep the clients and to keep the clients, my role here is to support them to where they need to go in their own lives. And if that means that I just prescribe them, in a sense, go and stand on the ground for, and it's free, you don't need to pay me, you need to pay anyone, like go and do that. Like if you need to work with someone, then yes, you're paying of course for their time, for their expertise, for all of their trainings and everything. But so many different things are actually free and accessible, but if we don't know, then they are not accessible, because I didn't know that that was something that would make me connect so much deeper with myself, and that connection, if I just go and put my feet on the ground, like consciously, with intention to do that. Not just like I went to the like to the beach and I went to swim and it felt good, but I didn't have that understanding. Why is this feeling good? So yeah, it's I think that there's such benefits a lot of times of understanding what is possible, and like, and how, again, like these wisdom teachings are so beneficial nowadays as well.
Yes, yes, understanding what is possible, I think, really opens the horizon for that to manifest in our life, right? Because if you don't even know, and this is why yoga was so influential for me, because until then I didn't even understand what was possible. And just the fact that I now understand what's possible makes it possible in a way. And you're right, like such simple things like putting feet on the ground, etc. Like the interconnectedness is what a word that you use. And this is another way that I found that shamanic practices can also be really interesting to show us that potential. So, for example, I'm thinking of plant medicine journeys. And I don't know if we can say the names here. I'm not going to say the names, but anyway, plant medicine journeys, in a way, what they can do is to show that potential. Like you can meditate for a long time sometimes, and I'm a fan of meditating. I tried once because someone told me if you meditate for 5 minutes a day, it will change things. I was like, 5 minutes, really? And I said, yes. So I'm just going to try it because I don't believe in anything until I try it. And I tried it, and later on, I realized, oh, this is why things are changing in my life. Like I actually started meditating for 5 minutes. So yeah, I do. It's beautiful to start that inner process of change. But sometimes you don't know what is the potential. And for example, with plant medicine journeys, sometimes you see the potential straight away, like in one journey. And so you take, let's call them the grandmother and the grandfather, like you take that medicine and suddenly, like you just feel how everything is interconnected. Like you feel in your heart the hearts of everyone and every being, plant, animal, or otherwise. And it just is this huge expansion of the awareness of the soul and this huge peace and joy and bliss. And so, yeah, it gives you a glimpse. Then you have to work for it, Then you have to do the work and actually look at your ego and look at all the defenses and look at all of that. But at least, yeah, it can give you a glimpse of it.
Yeah. And I would love, Katia, if you can share for everyone that is listening, and like you mentioned that you lost your baby. How did you work on that? How are you still working on that? What did you use? Did you use some of those ceremonies or some of those journeys to navigate that?
It's been so many years. It's been so many journeys, and so I guess the first thing I can say is to set an intention. Setting an intention is for me the key thing about anything in life. Because once you set an intention, you start attracting things towards that intention. And I went to many ceremonies with this intention of healing, of letting go, of all of that. So I don't remember exactly it's been a while, so I don't remember what ceremonies I went to, but my typical process is set that intention, do a ritual sometimes with the full moon, make a little fire and like put into the fire like little pieces of paper with what you want to let go of, what you want to be attracting into your life. And then one of the things that I did is I did a pilgrimage, like the Camino de Santiago, for example, in Spain. So this is a walk that goes all the way from France through to the top of Spain and to Portugal actually as well. And so for me, when you walk the Camino de Santiago, there's something magical about it. Like it actually fulfills your intention. And this was my experience, and I've heard this story from so many people as well, So at this point, I'm kind of convinced that it's magical. But how it is? Well, it's magical because thousands of people walk it every day, with intention. So that is in itself energetically very charged. But also because if you walk for 6 weeks with a single intention, my God, how much energy are you putting into that intention, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one thing. I think that again, psychotherapy wasn't accessible to me at the time. But it can be a very useful thing, to process, etc. So yeah, the Western approach is more like the psychotherapy, etc. Yoga, because yoga, what it does is it uplifts the vibration, and when you're in a higher vibration, some things just drop off. Like the lower resonances, the heaviness and things like that drop off, and they're replaced with higher resonances like hope and inspiration, etc. So those are naturally healing resonances. So yeah, the tools of yoga, then the tools of shamanism, the more grounded practices. Not that yoga is not a grounded practice. I don't want to give out that impression either. Yeah. So does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, As we've been talking, different practices or different traditions will resonate more with people. I think that one of the things that through the years I have realized, not only for myself, but with a lot of my clients, has been that things cannot just be worked through the mind. You know, they need to be embodied with whichever way, working with it somatically, whichever way. There are so many things that, I mean, it is possible. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but for most people, working only through the mind makes it much more challenging than if we are working more holistically and seeing all of the different aspects of who we are as a being, to be able to either, you know, like transform or heal from some past trauma, and to choose. And I think that what you're saying from that intention is key. And when you're giving, I mean, like, there's this saying, you know, like, where attention goes, you know, like, energy flows. So if you're putting, as you're saying, you know, you're walking the Camino, for 6 weeks, you're having that intention, it is much more likely for that to get so much more energy than if you are, let's say, you know, going to work and then going to buy groceries or going to meet with friends or this and that, and then the energy is much more scattered. And that is a lot of times why, and I share this multiple times throughout the podcast, why the years that I spent in the Tibetan Buddhist retreat center were so pivotal for me, because I didn't have to do anything other than being there. I didn't have to worry about, you know, like, making money or going to buy food, or cooking. Like, I was just doing what I was doing, and that, as you're saying, the power of holding that intention and that energy there, it's magical.
That is so true. Gnosticism that talks about the two paths. There's a horizontal path and a vertical path. And the horizontal path is things that you do in life. You know, you go to work, you study, you have children, etc. And in the horizontal path, everything that you accumulate in this lifetime will just drop when you die. Like, you can't keep your work when you die. You know, like, everything just, that's it. And then there's the vertical path, which is the path of awakening consciousness. So the parts of your soul start to awaken, and that is what you bring to other lifetimes, you know, if you believe in reincarnation, which of course they do. So yeah, the most important path is the vertical path, because it is the one that really matters across lifetimes.
Yeah, and I'm working in a sense with both, because we are still in this reality. I think
Yeah.
this is one of the things that I tell to a lot of people that come to see me for more spiritual growth, and it's like, yeah, we're also here. We need to find the way of being here with perhaps a different awareness of what it means to be here and what it means to do things, because it is possible to be here talking with you and to have that greater awareness, and, you know, like, or we could be chatting without any awareness at all. So it's possible to find that balance between the two worlds, in a sense.
Yes, exactly. And that is, I think, a real key as well. You know, when my favorite definition of Tantra, there's many definitions. You know, a lot of people think that Tantra is just about sex, which is a real shame, in my opinion, because that's kind of the new age kind of perception of Tantra. But Tantra is actually, it has teachings about every single thing in life. Like, you name just anything that's around you, and I will tell you a teaching about it, right? And so my favorite definition of what Tantra is, someone said to me one day, Tantra is the art of awakening through every circumstance in life. So it's not about going to a monastery and meditating for 20 years. And you've come out of there, you think you're enlightened, and then you see people, you're annoyed as hell, you know? So it's about, like, live life, like, actually live life, but use every circumstance, as you say, with awareness and with intention.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And, you know, like, I think that nowadays there's so many misconceptions around, especially around Tantra, and so many different things like that, you know, I find, and this is just for me, like, just finding that space of being grounded into all of the teachings. And I mean, there's nothing, sex is part of life and part of the teachings as well. And what's possible through there, just as you're saying, with any other thing that we're doing. So, yeah, it's I think that just for me a lot of times it's about finding the way of being more present, more grounded in whatever it is that I'm doing, because from that place it is so much easier to expand. And sometimes I see people that go a lot into that expansiveness without being grounded, and they're just floating, and that's all good, that's their path. But there's, like, for me, this sense of like, okay, let's be here, let's connect, let's ground, let's put those roots down, and then let's expand from that place. So yeah, definitely I can see that. And Katia, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned before your book. I wanted to ask you, for you to share it first, why writing a book, what led you to that, on writing it as a fiction. Yeah, can you share a little bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking. The book was a surprise even to me, honestly, and it was born out of pure synchronicities. Like I went to this surf town in Portugal, and I was set. I am going to properly learn to surf. Like for many times I touched on that in life, and then I decided it kind of never worked out, but now it's going to work out. I am going to Peniche in Portugal, surf town, and I'm going to do nothing but surf. I took only I think my laptop and some clothes. That's it. And I rented a room for that. As soon as I got there, I hurt my back in a radical way, doing nothing. Like nothing happened, but my back was, I was bedridden for the entire time. I didn't surf once.
Oh.
And the only thing I had on me was a laptop. And I'm like, I couldn't even go to the toilet. Like that was how much pain I was in. So, okay, what am I going to do with the laptop? And I started writing. And this story started to come out, of events that had happened in my life, but also like just in a narrative that was surprising to me. It was as it was coming, I was like surprised, and I couldn't keep up with the typing. I was just like racing to type what was coming through me. And at the end of the day, I would think, oh my God, I cannot believe that came through. But it looks like a book, but maybe I've got nothing else to say tomorrow. Like, okay, like, let's just see what happens. And the next day, first thing in the morning, I would be like, all this download would come through again. And again, at the end of the day, I would think, okay, that's got to be it. Surely I've got nothing else to say. So this happened for almost just a little bit over 3 weeks. And at some point, I finished the book and the back pain stopped. So I didn't surf once, but the book really needed to come through for some reason. And there it is. It's called Echoes of the Timeless, by the way, if anyone wants to. It's everywhere. So it's an audiobook, it's in like a physical book, it's ebook. Like, so feel free to have a look. But yeah, that was the story was just unbelievable how it came through.
Wow. Yeah, that's wonderful. Like, not for your surfing lessons, but
No.
for for having that, like, I think that, as you're saying, like that you mentioned earlier, sometimes you don't see the full, like, puzzle, but most likely this was part of that. It was just, well, you need to go there thinking that you were going to surf the entire time, and it was for the book.
Yeah, I think so. Something happened there. I can't explain it and I can't replicate it. Maybe it will happen again at some point, but I can't replicate it. And I see that in the feedback as well. Like something really special seems to happen to people as they're reading it, more than a story. They describe it more like a transformational experience in itself. So like I can't explain it, but yeah, many things in my life I can't explain. And that is the beauty of, I guess, this path, is that the more you're in it, the more magic starts to happen. And a lot of it is mysterious and unexplainable, but like it's a real honor, it's a real privilege.
Yeah, I have someone a long time ago that she was talking about life as a mystery, and if we embrace that and the magic that happens in that space, then it takes a very different approach than being fearful or trying to control everything. And it's just like, yeah, this is mysterious, so let's just go with that. And I'm aware, Katia, of our time, so I would love it if you can share with everyone, just, like if they are resonating with you and perhaps with your book, where can they find you, so that they, potentially reach out or read more about how to work with you?
I guess my website is catiabatalha.org. And I'm in, like, I think pretty much all the social media. My book is Echoes of the Timeless. You can pretty much find it anywhere that books can be found in. So I guess that's it.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll put those links as well in the show notes so that it's easy for everyone to find it. Before we go, what is something that you wish everyone in the world knew?
I wish that everyone in the world knew that if only they follow their intuition, that will lead them to a better place.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Katia, for taking the time. For everyone watching and listening, what did you hear? What resonated with you? Let us know in the comments, whatever it is that you're finding this episode, to keep the conversation going. If you are resonating with Katia and you want to go and check out the book as well, go into the link to get it. And yeah, thanks, Katia, once more.
Thank you so much, Brian. That's been beautiful to have this lovely conversation with you.
And I'll see you sometime soon here in person as well. Thank you everyone for being here. Until next time, bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.